Well, it's about that time again. You see, every couple of years we reconvene in a room such as this one to talk about the same thing. It's almost like a clockwork board meeting. It's about Lacuna Coil, or a brand new Lacuna Coil album, such as what we're doing today. And every single time that we have this meeting, or at least the past couple of times we've been hoping that we're going to get something that's a little bit closer to Comalize in terms of craft or overall enjoyment, as opposed to another shallow life. We've gone insane based off of this idea, and it's quite literal considering, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, hoping for different results, or something like that. But still we come back for more. We're hoping for that creative zest. We're hoping for that right hook that takes us on a ride that we hadn't heard before with this group. We're kind of like, dope sick. Yeah, every single time we come back hoping that it's like our first time, as opposed to all of the times since then where the drug hasn't been that good. So we sit here and we wait. We're getting delirious in the process. And well, here we are in 2016, and the brand new Lacuna Coil album is called Delirium. Quite the apt title. And it's definitely one that some fans have felt. Now, I'm not saying this is a universal feeling, so if you've enjoyed the past couple of releases that the band has put out, don't feel insulted by that. It's definitely more of a preferential thing, as opposed to one that's universally shared. Although, I will say that if you talk to a lot of the fans' elder fan base that were around whenever they first got started, a lot of them definitely were hoping for something a little bit more out of these past, say, 4 releases. It's been quite a number of them. So anyway, with Delirium, we have ourselves something altogether different. Yeah, right there, right out of the gate. I'm telling you, it's different. And really, this was something that has been known ever since the House of Shame was premiered to the world. And it's something that showcased the band doing something that just didn't seem like the band. It almost seemed like we accidentally stumbled upon Paradise Lost and Christina just happened to be helping them out. This felt creative. This felt like it had a lot of different movement to it, different motion. It didn't feel like the same old shit that we've been getting for the past, say, decade. It definitely had a bit of a fresh buzz. This is definitely one of the band's more aggressive, if not the most aggressive album that they've put out. And it's one that's really complemented by riffing that almost sounds like it'd be apt in a metalcore disc, either that or even a deathcore disc. Yeah, some of these compositions do get stripped down a little bit, and the only thing that really satisfies the whole gothic metal texture is the overall environment in which they're placed. So basically call it a heavier gothic metal, or maybe you just want to call it gothic core. That might be insulting, and plus we don't need another subgenre. But the House of Shame is an excellent opener. It's also the longest ride that we take on this album at nearly 5.5 minutes. Going down to the Broken Things and then into Delirium, this is something that continues. And while Christina's voice becomes a little bit more pronounced and a little bit more revealed as each passing track goes forward, it's still something where they satisfy exactly what the tracks need. The motion and everything definitely feels great. If I were a past member of this band, and believe me, they have 3 of the 4 Ninja Turtles, at least in first name, I would definitely be proud about what this band has been able to accomplish with this disc, considering it feels like it has a lot more motion. It's a very kinetic album as opposed to one that feels a bit static. But we do need to listen to all of it. So going into Blood, Tears, and Dust and moving down into Downfall, we start to notice that things are getting a little bit similar, which is A-okay, but there's still enough of a surprise whenever it comes to the composition. Even if it's something where the overall motion of the verse, either that or the bridge, sounds extremely tedious, either that or similar to the one previous, that they've kind of stuck within the same tempo or the same range, it's still one that feels a little bit nicer considering these hooks, these melodies, and the overall construction, the craft that we've been talking about, has a little bit more flavor, has a little bit more edge. That kinesis certainly is helping out, giving it a more lively feel. It's not something that feels static and combustible, but instead feels very much like it has a lot of life and room to breathe. But then you get into a track such as Take Me Home, either that or you get into some of the tracks that feel a little bit more hokey, and there are a couple that are possessed on this album that definitely have that hokey exterior, whether it be a sing-song style of an opener that sounds like Lacuna Coil is trying to audition to do the theme song for the next Freddy Krueger flick, either that or just songs that feel like the motion and the kinesis that the first half of this album possessed has dissipated, Well, it's something that certainly is possessed, and You Love Me Because I Hate You kind of keeps things a little bit more in focus and tries to keep things going, but My Demons is the track that really sort of rights the course a little bit and rights the ship. The only real complaint that I have about this disc is that by the end of it, you start to, I guess, pick up a little bit on the formula. You start to pick up a little bit on the writing style. Even with all of that motion, even with all of that difference, even with this feeling like the freshest album that we've gotten from this band in more than a decade, it's still one where you can pick up on its tricks after just a little bit of listening. And that's something that's a bit disappointing, but you're kind of so blown away by the fact that, a lot of the other stuff that's happening on this record is happening, it's reality, that you almost forget about that. You forget how heavy that this band has the propensity to be. You forget about the strong and fierce growling vocals from the male. You hear those ethereal female vocals, of course, from Christina, and it's something that blends together a lot more nicely on this disc, considering it opens up a window and really a world of possibilities that this band was starting to really explore during the first portion of their career, explored very minorly over the past decade, and now all of a sudden they're exploring them a lot more, which it feels like we've just gone circular, almost as though we're looking at this album as some sort of promise of things to come, that this is actually going to be the launch point for a next great golden age of Lacuna Coil. I'll believe that when I see it. And really, that's not skepticism. It's just based off of what we got. Whenever I first got into this band, it was with Coma and with the album that was previous to it, whose name is just, it's gone. See ya. Bye-bye. See you later. One of the many things my mind is often to dump. And it was something where I was figuring that I would be into this band and loving everything that they do for decades to come. Kind of like listening to Iron Maiden for the first time. But of course, the result has been that the last decade of listening to Lacuna Coil, for me at least, has been pretty tedious. It's been one where my amount of listening to them has kind of skidded down to a crawl pace, only doing it, or opting to do it, once or twice a year. But really, with Delirium, all of that delirious notion that we've had inside our heads is now gone, because this actually is an album that promises potentially a better tomorrow. It's one that does showcase that the band, in its present format, they have made some lineup changes, just in case I forgot to mention, which I know that I did. With those lineup changes, it feels a little bit fresh. Sometimes, even if a band has a classic lineup, and that, classic lineup is great and everything, if the material's starting to get a little stale, if things are starting to go down, kind of a bad highway, it's kind of apt, it's kind of good in order to change things up. That's what happened here. We have an album that's actually an album. Is it any coincidence? Sometimes it really is just that easy. The songwriting is also tighter, but we've gone over that. Tracks that I would certainly check out from this disc for yourself to really explore some of these ideas is Broken Things, The House of Shame if you haven't already, My Demons, Ultima Radio, and even Take Me Home and You Love Me Because I Hate You, should I say. A couple of these tracks just have a powerful, powerful moment from Christina that actually helps boost the song, as opposed to it just sounding like every other Lacuna Coil track. That's why the kinesis is so important. It makes the things that really cause the band to be the band, that cause Lacuna Coil to be Lacuna Coil, such as Christina vocals, and elevates them to something that just feels fresh. And that's what this is. Delirium feels fresh. It's not an album that feels like it's lumped and bumped in with those last couple that have certainly felt extremely tedious and extremely, extremely difficult to get through. This is an album that isn't perfect. It's an 82 out of 100, which really, some people may complain, is a hell of a low score for the amount of praise it's been given. But in spite of all of that kinesis, there are moments where the album does feel a little bit repetitive, a little bit hokey, as though the songwriting on just a couple of the tracks could have used an extra punch, an extra zip, something to give it a little bit of individuality. You notice how easily it was for me to rattle off some of the tracks from this release as highlights. The problem is that some of the others, well, they're not the ones that come to mind, considering they're very largely forgettable. That being said, who cares? This is a great return to form for Lacuna Coil. This band has returned, and in 2016, that is a great gift for heavy metal. Considering we're losing bands such as Manowar and Agalog to retirement, and musicians such as Nick Menza to death, it's certainly great to see that a band like Lacuna Coil has returned, basically, to hopefully give us some more great albums. But I want to know what you guys think about Delirium by Lacuna Coil. Let me know in the comments below. And I'm Coverkillernation, in case you're wondering. Hi. nice to meet you. I do album reviews. If you have one that's coming out this weekend that you think that should be done, either that or included in next week's edition of 5 metal albums recently released that you should check out, leave them in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.